Welcome to the Build and Inspire podcast. We meet incredible people building amazing things, so you'll be inspired to build what you're passionate about.
We got the Amazon portable, it's a more portable model, but yeah.
I've always wanted just to have a laminator and just laminate legitimately everything and anything. Phone.
You can. Well, you can't laminate that, but you can have a...
Oh, you know what I'm thinking? I'm not thinking of a laminator. I'm thinking of a label maker.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because this is the laminator that has the plastic sheet over everything.
But you printed these out.
So we printed it on the printer, but then we've got the laminator, the plastic sheets that it's melted plastic. So it's a hard, sturdy, plastic.
Yeah. So obviously people on the podcast can't see us, but right now I'm in your house and you have labels over most of the furniture and the walls and stuff, itemizing and explaining what everything is, like an ottoman, chair, wall, picture. For when I come over, I didn't know.
Yeah, it's really helpful for you. We wanted to make you feel at home here.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. I was like, ottoman, 2 T's.
Yeah.
Didn't know. Or I would have just called that. I don't know what I would have called that, to be honest.
And I'm assuming that the O can be lowercase on the furniture.
Yes, 100%.
This is not an empire in our apartment.
That is true. Well, David Berkowitz.
Yes.
I'm going to call you, obviously, what I always call you and what.
Well, no, you can't say that word on Apple. Apple will censor it. Which B word?
Oh, Berkey.
Oh, okay. That one's okay.
Right? Because you know how
Berkey's,
Yeah. We've worked together now at 2 different places. 360i, the digital ad agency. Sysomos, the social media management listening and reporting tool. And then we freelanced together, and
and I hired you for project work at Story Hunter.
You did. So we've worked together many times.
Now? Yeah. Okay.
That's the S word we can say, right?
Okay.
So here's the thing, though. I've realized many, many, many times in meetings, talking to other people, where I've just said Berkey.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to the end of the conversation, and people are like, "So who are you talking about?" I'm like
your imaginary friend.
Yeah. I'm like, David Berkowitz. And they're obviously going to say, "Oh, the serial killer?"
Yeah.
No, that's what happens right now when you Google yourself, right?
I've heard, yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
No, of course.
I didn't even know this thing was on yet.
No, I know. That's the beautiful part.
This is great.
Yeah. I'm trying to do armchair expert, Nerdist.
Yeah.
Have you listened to those yet?
No, I don't listen to podcasts, but I love them.
They're really good. Well, you listen to this one.
I love podcasts.
At least this one, the Build and Inspire podcast.
Bleep out the not listening.
Okay. All right. But I know you are into audiobooks, and we'll get to that. But first, love to just for the people to know who you are, what you've done, where you started, all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Who are you?
Who am I? I don't know who I am. I don't know. I showed up magically from Jersey, fist pumping.
Security in this building is really, really
That is true. He did ask me for literally everything. Social security number, blood type.
Okay.
You
Good.
name it. So you have all this information.
Okay, good.
23andMe.
Excellent. You're good when you're nominated for the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Have it on file.
That is true. Or when I try to get another job, who knows what ends up happening.
It's true. Like Gattaca scenario.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not only a marketer, entrepreneur, consultant, dad, advisor, speaker, husband, all these amazing things.
Great nephew.
That is true. Friend. There's 101 million things that I could say about you, but I think generally speaking, people know you as a marketer, right? 3-time CMO, started out in the early days of digital advertising. Did you start on MySpace pages and Friendster, or even before that? Or still one of my favorites was 6 Degrees in the 90s. 6 Degrees.
Yeah, do you know that one?
No, is it 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon kind of thing?
Yeah, but it was around late 90s. So this was an original kind of Facebook, and then you could see who you knew in common and things like that. And so I was heavy into this with a number of friends of mine.
Really?
Yeah, we were 6 Degrees junkies before there was Friendster. So.
That's amazing. Well, I was in high school back then.
Yeah.
And I used to use Yahoo Games. Mm-hmm. That's really where we talk to people.
Yahoo Games was fun. I did some like backgammon and stuff.
I used to play some checkers.
I think backgammon was my thing.
Yeah. But after that, because I actually started my first job in social media was for a coffee shop.
Okay.
And I was on MySpace. Like that's where we got most of our people.
Yeah.
And when you and I met, I think that's really 2010 around?
Around then, yeah.
I think that's really when Facebook, MySpace was like dead by then, I think. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube were becoming a thing, a real thing. People were always talking about it, but it was not like a thing.
And there are a couple versions of the thing because there was, I'd say like 3 points in the evolution of these things. You know, so one is when it was like clearly like this thing has potential to be a very big deal.
Yeah,
they've got the early adopter set. So I mean, Facebook's the easiest to point to. So Facebook, especially as it spread from Harvard to some other dorms, like you know, even when it was still first 20 campuses or so, this was like this was a thing. It was catching on. It was just like really spreading wildly. So people who were at Columbia and one of the first 30,000 people on Facebook, like they knew it was a thing.
Yep.
2004, like they were sold, right?
Yeah.
Then there was the next thing where you've got like this platform, 50 million users now. A few years later, it's a very big deal.
Yeah.
But they've got these tiny, terrible little banner ads running alongside. Like,
and brands aren't even on there at this point,
right?
At all.
Like you could have had some. At this point, a few years later, there were these ads like very text heavy. You had these ad placements where there were 7 of them in a row.
Really,
these little tags, just like the desktop version of the right-hand rail of Google, but worse, and ugly. And
have you been to some blogs recently?
There are others who are even worse than that, but this is like, so 2006, 2007, it was a very big deal. And then like as I see what you're talking about, it's like this kind of third era where you have social media marketing at scale.
Yes.
And big brands they can reach 50, 100 million people on these things. Like obviously now 100 million people, it's like, oh, well, show me your billion users.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also don't want to dismiss the fact that that there is people who were on Reddit when like I would have said Reddit's nothing, and they're like, this is my entire life right now, and they knew that it would become a top 10 website.
Yeah, it is. I think it's actually in the top 5 right now in the United States.
Yeah, and like I figured top 10 safe enough.
Yeah, in the world at least. We go fact check this later.
Somewhere.
But before that, there was even actually, let's even forget about like the social networks, because correct me if I'm wrong, the way you got started at 360i with Sarah Hofstetter and all the original crew that hopefully I'll have on the podcast soon.
All of them.
Yeah, I will have every single one of them eventually, right? Maybe in a group together. We just do it at a bar. But you started with what 360i coined as DWOM, digital word of mouth, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't even talking to people on social networks. It was bloggers who you reached out to and tried building relationships with and talked to about brands and such like that.
Oh yeah. Well, the first blog outreach and social media marketing in any material sense of the word that 360i did, period, was Sarah Hofstetter and I, and Sarah, so your audience knows, went on to become the CEO of this something like 1,000-person global agency. So Sarah, who was really a PR consultant, like almost full time when I joined, a very big deal, but it's like also that, when I joined, Sarah Hofstetter was like she was a very important person in the industry, but she was not yet Sarah Hofstetter, right?
Yes.
So I knew her when.
Yes.
But with this kind of stuff, like Sarah and I, we were doing this stuff ourselves, like like really crazy in the weeds, and so I had written the first draft of the emerging media practice business plan.
Really, I actually didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Like I still have these.
So I have to thank you for a job, my job at 360.
Well, I have to thank. I have to thank Brian and Sarah, because Brian Wiener, who was originally, at least for our time there, he was the CEO the whole time.
Yes.
And now, Brian, what he deserves a lot of credit for is this vision that like this is where things are going, and like Brian, what I love about him, and hope he is, hope he listens to this.
Oh, he better be listening to this.
Appreciates this characterization.
I love Brian.
He's like talking to a friend. What's great with Brian in this context is that he wasn't one of those like diehards. Social media is going to change the world. We want to go and like he's not one of those gurus come down from the mountain saying like kumbaya, let's all get together and be social, and this is the reinvention of communication.
Yes.
It's like he saw this as okay, like things are shifting in this direction. This is what their clients are caring about now. 360i in 2006 when I joined was a search engine marketing and optimization company that still had its strongest presence in Atlanta, where it was founded. Amazing company.
So social media was just like the tiniest part.
Well, when I started, social media wasn't a part of it, and so to your point, like social media marketing at scale wasn't a thing. So like for Brian to say, look, we're making all our money off website optimization and these 100 character search ads. Yeah. And we're going to place a bet on doing stuff that's like sounds like low grade PR, where we're doing this PR, but to someone who's got some like random auto blog with 500 readers and this
I remember reaching out to people like
that. And we think that A, we have the credibility, and B, that our clients would care and see that we'd actually make any money doing off of this. And initially this was, even if we were charging decent rates, we were charging a premium in the marketplace. Still like this was going to be a loss leader for a while, and stuff took a lot of time. And so for Brian to have that vision, and for Sarah to have that vision, and for us to like rally around this, and Sarah to be able to pitch this stuff and get clients on board and make them comfortable with a totally different way of this agency going to market. Like this is the practical stuff. So, I'll take a bit of the credit there, but there'd have been no like Berkey at 360i without Sarah and Brian's leadership.
No, it makes sense. So it's one of the things I love about Brian. He was my boss also at XBeyond, and he always gave me the ability to try new things and fail. Right? Like he truly meant those words, where you hear people say that a lot, but sometimes people say it and you don't really feel it. He made sure that I felt it, and I had the opportunity to try cool new things. But trying cool new things is scary, right? It's hard. And in this podcast, the website, the blog, Build and Inspire, is based off of a scientific principle that if you want people to do something, you inspire them if they want to do something positive, right? If you want them to stop doing something, you scare them. And my example is always look at cigarette packages, right? There's like people sick and look scary and nasty, and that's to deter something. How did you actually get clients to jump on board with you on this brand new thing that no one knew about, didn't know it was going to work or anything? Did you try mostly to inspire them as like driving the value that potentially is there, or this is a new space that you need to be into, and if you're not into, you're possibly going to miss it. So I always like to think about, was it more on the inspirational side or a mixture of both, or like, how was it?
So one of the things that 360i did extremely well that I think agencies today are having a very hard time with overall is that 360i was a place where we could educate clients first.
Yep.
And so if you look at the year leading into when this draft of the business plan emerged, when I was hired there, it was the strategic planning role. I didn't know what strategic planning was. I don't think Sarah and Brian really did either in terms of like what it meant for an agency. Because after I joined, I'd started getting emails for like strategic planning conferences, and I'm like,
what?
This has nothing to do with me. So I think we're all kind of making some of this stuff up and just seeing what happened. But a lot of it was, okay, so I get in there, I'm pretty sure I was the first person with strategy in their title, and like before we could even charge for strategy, let alone charge a premium for that. Like that was something to just give away to try to get the business initially. And so with, coming in there, I had some of this bandwidth to go and say, well, what are these next things that clients care about? And there was a retailer who was looking at what their company would look like 5 years from now, which now it's funny, it seems like ancient history. But they had like they had Google and Yahoo coming in, and then they had one of the big like top 5 consulting firms coming in, and they had us.
Wow.
And so like I was coming up with some blue sky stuff like this, but also I'd look out there and be like, oh well, this MySpace is rolling out these new homepage takeovers, or this podcasting thing is catching on. How do we go and explain this and make sense of this to marketers? Now, so I started this POV, this point of view piece series at 360i. And so I got to craft the voice for a lot of this. And when there were subject matter experts needed, great. Often I just wanted to be in that. But so many of those initial questions were around social and how to make sense of this and what to do with it. And one of the other things I'm happy to give Brian a lot of credit for is I worked. It might have been the first POV, if not, it was one of the first. And I show him the draft, and he looks at it. He has a 2-word response to it.
Okay.
Goes, so what? Like I literally wrote this down. Put it on the back of my business card. Taped that to my wall behind my computer, and I gotta say, he never had to ask me that again, because this is also like Brian Leadership 101. He asks you something, he never asks you something like one way or another.
My laughter, not only was it funny, it's the laughter recognition too on my end. But
it's because if he has to ask you too many times, you're not gonna. You're not going to do too well there. But so it was just constantly trying to say, okay, so this thing's a big deal, and a lot of people are listening to podcasts, in that first round of it. Well, why should marketers care? Okay, so audio is different from text, and okay, well, why does that matter? Why does it matter that people are subscribing to something and listening to something episodically, and how are people listening to it, right?
Even like online, because it's still new, right? Like even getting your information from online.
So this, now it's like, okay, so people are consuming this through, initially it would be, say, the iTunes desktop app, but then 2007, the iPhone comes out. So how does that change this, and how and when and where, and how do podcasts compare to radio, right? How do podcasts compare to Google and TV, and just constantly have to think of, from the market, you're a brand manager at Coke, or a search engine optimization manager at some insurance company. So why should they care? And I can't say I always figured that out, but it was like there, that was the goal.
Yes.
And sorry, because like I know I'm kind of rambling
this
a
is
little bit,
awesome.
but it sidetracks. And so we spent a year, and ultimately I spent 7+ years doing this, where it was like, it was getting clients comfortable with it. It was making sure that they knew that we could answer these kinds of questions. And so it was informing before inspiring, and here and there, okay, we could inspire.
Yeah.
But and ultimately we did inspire in that we motivated some of them to take action and work with us. I credit, more than anyone, I credit Sarah with getting our clients comfortable to do that with us. But I was constantly paving the way, and the fact that I wasn't selling anything, and that if I thought that marketers shouldn't care about Facebook in any material sense in 2006, then I'd say that and say, like, okay, and by the way, here's something you should know about, that there's literally nothing to do right now.
Yeah.
You know? Like, oh, okay. You know, so some of it was to inspire them not to worry about things or do anything. And like, oh, there's some Google new, Rubik's Cube update to their algorithm.
Yeah.
It's not going to change anything. Like, don't worry.
That would happen all the time, right? I think to try to condense it into one short sentence, and definitely not to belittle it at all, I think one of the things that you've always done fantastically well, when I met you and even when I see you speak, besides having the zeal and the passion when you talk about things and the ability to excite people, I think you always lead with the value. Right? And it sounds like throughout the whole story you just told, you were always talking about value too, and not just feature, right? Like earlier on in my career, I'd always mess that up, and I still see people messing that up today. Even like IBM, I think no longer is going to start using, no longer using IBM AI Watson. It's just Watson, right? Like, let's just talk about the value. Would you agree with that? Like, you guys focused a lot more on the value than just the feature?
Yeah, well, for us, the value came first, and the features came later.
Yeah,
and it's very weird, like especially having gone from the agency side through 360i and other shops, and then over to the tech side of it, where it's very strange that we come up with spending a while to understand the market, understand the needs, figuring this stuff out in terms of what this means for anyone. Yeah. And then come up with the business plan, like that I'd get to work there for this long before we even knew what a business plan would be. Like no one said to me by the end of the year, you would have to come up with this kind of thing. Sure. That wasn't one of my goals.
Yeah. And it was the Wild West.
So it was the Wild West, but there was also this time that I got to be a kind of experimental hire. That was a different sort of hire in that, I wasn't outright billable for all this stuff. And so somewhat different economics, had some luxuries there that Brian and the team invested in. But it's really, really weird, right?
Yeah, it is. It's very unique because very few places will allow you not to be billable, right?
Yeah.
Big, small, medium, doesn't matter. And then you sit there for a while and you're like twiddling your thumbs. I shouldn't say twiddling your thumbs. Like, you're doing a lot of work, but you're not necessarily seeing it get anywhere.
You're not seeing like the direct ROI on it.
Yes, that's a perfect way to put it. So thinking about that, for you, not necessarily for 360i, not Brian, not Sarah, when did that actually switch for you? Like, when you actually saw, like, this is a real thing, and I'm going to be here for another 2-5 years, and this is going to grow. For you personally, when did that switch? Or maybe it didn't happen and still I don't know what we're doing.
There was always some of this uncertainty in terms of that, but I think when we were able to land our first paying customer, which was Scripps Networks, HGTV, this amazing blog outreach campaign, and so then it's like, okay, we're really building a business here, and I think it was a while after that I appreciated that I was working on a business plan. Like I feel like if Brian and Sarah had told me write a business plan, I'd be like, I'm not qualified to do this, right? I haven't done this before. I'm so far out of my comfort zone. If it's like, okay, so instead the mandate was, okay, we're talking about a lot of this stuff. Like there's something there. What does this mean for 360i, right?
Sure.
So it's like, write a POV piece on 360i's guide to this. And I did it as a deck, and there was a forecast for what this could become and the services we'd offer, and many of which we did, some which we didn't, some of which firms like a Sysomos would wind up offering themselves. But it just allowed for anything and everything to be possible. And once this came together and we started, it was Scripps, and then it was NBC, and then H&R Block might have been
Comedy Central.
Well, and once we go to like an H&R Block and a Coca-Cola and some of these non-entertainment. By the way, at one point when we were working with 70% of basic cable networks on their social, like insane. If you looked at every network in a standard cable provider package and what that looked like in around 2007, 2008, we were working with 70%.
That's unheard of.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
And then expanding into weird areas like tax prep and soda water.
And cookies and all this crazy stuff.
Yeah.
So basically what you're describing is what's happening today with really hundreds of different things, but mostly, I guess, what's in the news and what we talk about: AI, blockchain, VR, all these things. What would you say to people starting companies now, or companies maybe that are where 360i was, right? Where they're doing this now and they're like, what are we doing? I don't know. Should we continue down this route? What recommendations or what learnings would you take away from your 360i days and your days, as an entrepreneur in different areas, which we'll get to in a minute? But what would you say to them now? Like, just continue on, try it, experiment, move fast, break things, all those things, or, not that I'm a fan of those.
No, but it does get into that value piece of it. And I think like some of it is to be hungry and invest in this in some way or another, whether you have people coming in whose job it is to think about the stuff and figure out how to apply it, or this is just like you allow a bit of bandwidth from some key people there or a key person there to go and work on some of this. A lot of it also is just thinking, okay, trying to understand this stuff as well as you can, seeing if there's some credible path, if it relates to what you're doing, and not needing it to, right? And so like
that's important.
Like so it's totally fine to take a look at everything in blockchain and say like okay, well, it might be nice to go and speed up some of the transactionals to verify user identities and maybe you could see some paths that like you could do 95% of this for what your firm is doing without the blockchain. Like focus on that 95%.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And some of it is you don't want to wind up in a defensive position. We saw this at Sysomos, even over the course of a number of months, where like from the RFPs that would come in, at the end of 2016, no one was asking Sysomos for its AI capabilities. Now, by the summer 2017, you start to see this pop up, and you have like these major global brands saying, "So, how are you applying AI and machine learning?" And you don't want to have to just come up with this on the fly.
That's true. And actually, you did something really fun, which I'll let you explain. I think you and I were down in Mexico City, and it was for an advertising event.
IB Conecta.
Yes. And
Sí,
de verdad.
Muy divertido.
And you asked a room of probably like 90% advertisers. There was some technology people in there, PR, et cetera, et cetera. But you asked them who has an AI budget. Less than 2% of people, right?
Yeah,
raised their hand.
Yeah, basically no one. Like probably the 2% who said yes didn't understand the question.
Yeah. Exactly, right? But I remember that, and that was so impactful to me, and I tell that story all of the time.
I should remember that one. That was a good one.
That was a really good one, actually.
Got to do that more.
Yeah, you should actually. Or like, who has a blockchain budget?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, what is blockchain, right? I mean, I still get the question, what is AI? And it's a good question, and I love the opportunity to evangelize and talk about AI. But I still think the problem is people are always focused on the feature, right? Even blockchain. That's blockchain's number one issue.
And I mean, there was stuff like 360i where it was working side by side with Search Ignite, now Ignition One.
Yeah.
And so there's stuff that Ignition One and this other company, Net Mining, was doing that became part of it. That's learning user behavior and adapting over time. And some of the stuff that you're saying, like, okay, now it would be an AI story.
Yeah.
And pretty powerful. But it's like they were just trying to make this work as well as it could for the value that they were trying to provide. And that's even better in that sense, because it's like, okay, and then as this stuff comes up, it's like, yeah, well, this is how we're applying it. And what I really liked talking about when it came to Sysomos was what are those very functional aspects where it can make a difference for a marketer. And now if a marketer wants to understand where their where their brand is in terms of like how it's being shared and things like that, then including images as part of that becomes really important. And the only way for image recognition to really work is for algorithms to get smarter over time and learn to recognize this stuff. But now you're already 5 steps removed 100%. From the AI questions, and it's much more about the okay, so what do I need to do my job better? Yeah,
agreed. And that's the only thing, not the only thing, but that's one of the most important things you could bring up to anyone. So going back a little bit to 360i, and innovation was a key thing that Brian and Sarah really, really focused on. And, I'm hesitant to talk about innovation because so many companies say, we need to innovate, we need to innovate, we need to innovate. And it's so important. But again, building a culture of innovation and allowing people to innovate is completely different than just telling people you need to innovate, right?
Well, I have a unique connection to that too, because I was one of the first people on the agency side to have innovation in my job title, and also one of the first to drop it.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't actually. When did you drop it? Because I remember, was it, because I wanted to bring this up too, this is a good segue, you actually started a practice, I guess I could call it, or at least a program at 360i where you mentored different startups and you brought different startups. And I mean, pretty much my time through 360i, if I knew about a new technology or platform, it was because of you, right? And Brian and Sarah, 360i, the whole culture gave you the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Did you have innovation in your title before or after that?
So it was kind of somewhere in the middle of while I was there.
Okay.
At one point, I think it was senior director of emerging media and innovation.
Okay.
And then I was having my review with Sarah at one point, and it's funny because we both sat down and we were both about to say the same thing, and I think Sarah brought it up, and it's not like she ever gets nervous about anything, but she didn't know how I'd take it, and I'm thanking her because neither of us thought it should be one person's job,
100%,
or an outsourced.
It's a culture,
and it's a culture, and just things. Forget about the Super Bowl stuff. Forget about even the very innovative Oreo daily twists that you were working on, and this new breakthrough social post every single day that was culturally savvy and on brand, and the hundreds and hundreds of rejected ideas that went into that whole process. Yes, it was innovative, but just Guinness World Records, you've got a lot to show for it, and not just on Oreo, but some of it is okay, well, just trying to do something that we're going to try to use 2 images here instead of we're going to just try to change how we we're going to change how many slides it takes for us to tell this to a client, and we're going to put something on one slide instead of 100. that's innovation too. And to the point where it could be the office manager just trying to make sure the cleaning supplies didn't overpower the smell of the coffee anymore. Or like there are just all of these ways that every single person could go and bring something to their job. And
you got it. Companies that tell people to innovate is like telling someone who's unhappy to just be happy.
Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't work. Right. You need to set the fundamentals to do that. And also you need to, again, back to the name of the podcast, but you need to inspire people to feel comfortable. That feeling.
To build people.
Yeah, exactly. Build and inspire.
Oh.
Pew, 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 pew. That's
nice.
A little gun.
Got it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we could put in some sound effects afterwards.
Hoping this to be non-violent.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry. So you've always been building stuff, right? Whether it's your own consulting firm, an advisor at different companies. What keeps you going? What inspires you to do this? And I always like to ask, is it a person? Is it a book you read? Is it a combination of things, right? Like, what inspires you to continue to build and do everything you do?
I think it's just this inherent curiosity and just constantly trying to learn myself, and then it's really motivating. Like one of those books that helped formulate things for me early on in my career was there's this author Richard Koch or Koch, and I really should know how to pronounce his name. But he wrote this fantastic work, The Natural Laws of Business.
Okay.
And one I should actually reread sometime.
All right, I actually don't know this book.
But yeah, I mean, it's written 20 years ago or something.
Sure.
And he took a lot about applying scientific laws and how they relate to the business space.
That's amazing.
And it was where I learned about, actually, he wrote the original book on the 80-20 principle.
Oh, okay. So, I didn't know that.
So this was like his claim to fame, and this kind of follow-up book. And he talked about how he created his own, what he called his personal university, where he'd have these amazing people like just come over to his place for dinner and this like kind of salon style stuff. But just if there was something he wanted to learn more about, he'd go and he'd strike up a conversation, break bread with them. And this is how he learned rather than a classroom type setting.
Because it was a human connection, right? It's building real.
It was
affinity.
the human connection, but it's like it's like how I learned at a conference from the people I'm talking to out in the hallway.
Yeah.
And it's not just for the socializing piece. Like this is how I'm going to learn more than from most panels I sit in on.
Agreed.
So at the time I was working for eMarketer. I was an editor there. I'd actually initiated, or like little did I know, I was actually restarting something that someone else had done, but this interview series. So I was writing this original content. I wound up interviewing 175 executives and authors and other just amazing, interesting people, sort of from like just these incredible folks like Seth Godin and Scott Adams. And just by chance, Keith Hernandez spoke at an eBay event. So like,
this is amazing. When is your book coming out?
I've got like a draft of a start of something on my desktop. And
all right.
First, like as soon as I can get a full night's sleep would be nice. But with, so just, and looking at this stuff, it gave me access to all these incredible people that, I'd go in just accepting that I knew nothing, and that I'm so used to and comfortable with being the dumbest person in the room. And so I love it. And just like trying to bat around these ideas and even the way blogging early on, like I've always enjoyed writing, but when you were a blogger in 2004, 2005, it gave you this ticket to be part of this community. Yeah. And a lot of that community, there are people I could call up all over the world and say, hey, I'm going to be in your town. We were just talking about this with going to Louisville. Like there are people like that, Jason Falls, who I've reached out to, and we were doing this stuff in the early days. And so I'm like amazing that he's such a big deal now, and I'd be thrilled to see him speak and that. I'd line up to see that, but really it's just like we were in that same club.
Same class.
Yeah. And it just, so in this today is that constant thing that I can't get over, just how supportive people in the industry are. And,
yes, that is true.
And how people are willing to just share their ideas and sit down with you. And I try to pay that back and be part of that process.
Amazing.
But it's like there's just so much of that's
there is
possible.
No, it's so you're inspired by the human connection, inspired by curious people, inspired by people wanting to build
and some of it some of it is a competitive sport.
Healthy competition is a good thing.
I've got a rush being on a panel, for instance, where especially because I usually look at who I'm paneling with, and I'm like I don't deserve to be on stage with these people.
I feel like that too.
And if I can just go and hold my own in this kind of forum, I that's a thrill and a half. No,
I feel that way too.
Doing Daytona or something. It just can I do that in some kind of meaningful way? But so this kind of stuff where it's like I like the idea to educate people, but when I'm able to make that connection, and then what also ties back into things is that I've come to appreciate, and I really appreciated this at 360i more than anything, is that people remember where and how and when they learned something.
Yeah. Oh, that is true. I never thought about it. Yeah. That's a really good point.
I mean, how did you learn about Twitter initially?
Yeah, I remember actually being at JWT and learning, and I remember the meeting and everything. That's really interesting. And even thinking back as I talk or as I try to mentor people, I always say, my first boss told me this. And I remember when I did that, and I never thought about it like that. But people do remember when you learn something. Yeah. It's interesting. Or even going back to school. Yeah. Right? That's interesting. So right now, I mean, you left 360i, then you were the CMO at MRY, or what used to be called Mr. Youth.
Yeah.
Then you went over to Sysomos, and you were the Chief Strategy Officer. That's when you and I ended up working together again after 360i. I was the VP of Client Strategy, reporting directly to you. But the whole time, you've actually always had Serial Marketer, right? And it's always been a blog of yours. And
mostly, caveat being when it started in 2005, it was marketerstudio.com.
I feel like I knew this. When did it change over to Serial
2016, not until I left MRY.
Okay, all right, so I definitely knew this.
So
it was just
good thing is that the new brand is strong enough. It feels like it's always been there. So.
It does, but I do remember it rings a bell by you naming the old name. But really, it's grown to be not just a blog now. You have your own Slack community.
It's a lifestyle brand.
Yeah, it is a lifestyle brand. Serial Marketer. I love it.
Protein drink.
It's everything, right? Did you order shirts yet?
It's a national holiday. Yeah, it's any day now. It's coming.
Really?
I'm waiting for it.
Do I get one?
I think I just ordered one. But
okay.
I didn't know you wanted to.
I want one for me and one for my truth.
Let me see if this looks good, and then I'll put it up for sale.
Well, my pug is an influencer, so
that's true.
Instagram.com/truthpug. She'll wear it. I'll charge you very, very little, so don't worry.
Okay.
But you have a Slack community now that it's in the hundreds. It's grown.
As of yesterday, there were 319 people who have registered there. And,
wow. And it's a very vibrant, passionate community, which also one thing that you've done, which is awesome, and is basically everything you were just talking about, the people that inspire you, is every time I go in there and I ask a question, people are just super, super friendly and willing to help and support.
It is, right? I'm amazed because this started, it was right around July 4th, give or take a few days.
I remember,
And it's just this stretch where there's been really next to no need for moderation in that sense. There are a few discussions I've weighed in on and things like that. it is this amazingly jerk-free community.
It is. Yes.
And if there are any, then they've been really quiet.
No, it's amazing. And I've met some amazing people in there. And it's so funny, you know, as you started talking about the 6 Degree network earlier on in the conversation, right? There are many people that I was tweeting with someone and you messaged me and you're like, do you know this person? I'm like, no, I was just tweeting them. And then they happen to be in the Slack community.
They just joined like that day or something. And so, because I saw that back and forth. I'm like, wait a second, I wonder if he even knows her.
I didn't know her. I'm actually going to have coffee with her maybe later today.
So I have a call with her later as well.
Look at this. Maybe she'll be on the podcast soon. This is a marketer from Talkwalker.
Yeah. So it's incredible. And it's like, look at her, like she's originally Belgian. I know the company's from Luxembourg, but she's Belgian, right? And now she's in, like, you were sharing stuff that she was working on.
Some new AI technology.
And Talkwalker's US CEO introduced me to her. And, and she was just really excited about being part of the Slack group. And now it's like, now you two are in the same club. And this is also, it's one of those things that gets me out of bed in the morning.
For other entrepreneurs out there, for other folks out there trying to build communities, how did you actually get now over 300 people into it? And how is it supplementing your business, your consulting, and other aspects of your life?
Well, the first part of it is just like having the will to do it is really tough. I thought about doing this for a couple of years, and just going in there and saying like I'm going to do this, and other people will care about it, and it's also a weird thing because, like, I don't want to be the center of this community.
Yep.
I want to open the door and really turn this into what people want to use this for.
Yep.
But I have to have some ego going in and saying like, okay, people, especially early on, just about everyone there is going to know me or at least be closely connected to me in some way. And like I have to kind of get over that bit and just go and do this thing and really just started with a LinkedIn post and said, here's some idea, bring folks together. I want to try this on Slack, post some jobs, events, like tech recommendations, that kind of stuff, and just bring some interesting marketing folks together.
Amazing.
And I thought, okay, maybe if I get 50 or so people in a month who want to do this thing, I'm just like opt in on some Google sheet.
That'd be a success.
That'd be great. And then I'll launch this thing. And then really quickly, I had over 100, like out of nowhere.
Amazing.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm launching this thing now. And so, and then I put one of the posts up on LinkedIn. I added a note on Facebook. And I think by the day I decided to launch, another week or two later, I had 250 people who had signed up, and opted in for interest, and then and a good chunk of them, something like 2/3 of those who've opted, maybe even more than that, have actually gone through and registered on Slack.
Wow! And
so not all of them are active, but it's like been a really strong base, and with what I'm getting out of it, it's like people are remembering how they meet people, how they connect with others. So it's just
job opportunities too for people out there.
Not
related to you, but anyone else.
I see it as like, what's the ROI on my blog?
Yeah,
it was the job at 360i. Like that was the main job that I was hired for, in part because I had this kind of audience, I had this kind of perspective that I was sharing there, so I didn't need to run any ads on it. I've had a newsletter that is also kind of interesting in the fact that I launched it as the Serially Sporadic year and a half ago or so. I think it was maybe late 2016, maybe nearly 2 years, and I'd publish it less than monthly. I didn't really know when or how. And this summer I switched to weekly, and it's been easier to publish because I'm now thinking in that mindset. I'm like thinking like a publisher.
Yeah.
In the process, I got to thank 4C Insights. They're my first sponsor.
Nice.
And their CMO, Aaron Goldman, reached out to me about this, and I was like, look, like, I'm
That's amazing.
Not Business Insider here. You're not gonna have the reach of Ad Age.
But the quality is there, right?
It's it's the people who are opting into this kind of thing. I have not manually added anyone, family members included, like no one without their explicit consent.
I've definitely added family to my newsletter.
So it is. I think my wife had to opt in to
amazing.
My newsletter, and if she doesn't want to get it, that's actually okay with me. So I was really surprised when we were dating, and came up in conversation that she was reading my blog.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, why? She's not in the industry. Like, why are you reading this? My list could also be a lot bigger in a sense if people I was meeting or adding on LinkedIn. Like, well,
you don't want to be a used car salesperson. I think about that though too. Like when I meet new people, I'm like, oh, and check out my blog and the podcast, and I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah, it's just with even a bit of reluctance that I've started to put together a signature together for email, and it's like people I'm emailing with, some of them will actually want to know that this exists. But
I recently did that.
I sent one email blast when I was launching this newsletter to my LinkedIn contacts, and that was it. Like, and this was a one-off, like, delete the list, won't bother anyone again. And a handful of those people opted out and just like didn't even want to get that update.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's nothing to opt out of, don't worry.
The one thing I've done is actually, and it's mostly friends and family, obviously, because it's Facebook, but on Facebook, I actually created a page for the podcast and for the blog and Build and Inspire. And I actually went through and just started inviting all my friends, and I have a couple of hundred people on there now.
That's awesome.
I've seen traffic spike and stuff like that. So I felt that was a less intrusive way to get my friends, colleagues, and people, closer to my circle into my community that I'm trying to build and such. So that might not be the worst idea. Does it have a Facebook page?
So Serial Marketer does it's not specific to the newsletter, but it's like, and I haven't really used the page much.
Yeah.
It's weird that I have a better functioning chat bot on Facebook than I do.
Oh, I remember that. I remember you building it.
Every now and then someone goes and uses it, but like there's been more effort put into that than actual Facebook posts. And then the community itself, doesn't quite need a Facebook page, but there's the serialmarketers.net landing page that is just a quick link to the Google form.
So people can sign up.
And every week or so I'll go through and check the list, and now, I think at some point soon, it's very nice because people who are in this community, they're so ridiculously respectful, and they're like, is it okay? There's someone, and they'll make the case for someone to join. Like, if you think someone's going to get value,
I've invited so many people already.
It's so many people are like, I want to, So this person who's like a VP at this company and they've done this and that, like would it be okay? I'm like, there's an invite link here.
Well, for me specifically, legitimately, anytime someone asks me and who's a marketer, they're like, I'm looking for work. I'm like, go to Serial Marketer Slack. Like, you go in there and there will be people in there that will help you, that are hiring, make introductions, whatever it is. I legitimately always send people there.
Awesome.
And because of that, specifically, I mean, there's so many other reasons to go, but I've seen that that's one of the most active channels in the Slack, which I think is amazing, right? Because there's so many things that we could talk about, hiring and the hiring process and such. But I know you have to go somewhat soon, so I want to make sure that I ask you a question that I try to ask everyone. Being inspired every single day, getting up and working on even your most passionate project, it's not always the easiest thing, right? So sometimes you just wake up and things are, it's hard. I mean, right? And I always like to ask people, like, how do you get through those days? Is it just something you do, a routine? Is it someone you call? Is it just your network? Hey, going into the Slack and being like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, what gets you through those days?
Yeah, it's weird because there are times where this Slack stuff, I love everything about how this community is functioning, and there's sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't need to go in right now, know, and I'm just doing some consulting projects and like dragging my feet to put a proposal together.
Sometimes you wake up,
and it's tough, and some of it's just it's just like there's a job to do, and there's the overarching factor, and like providing for my family, and that and some of it is just like every day I'm meeting fascinating people, and there are like so many ideas I'm hearing about, and there's someone I was catching up with yesterday, and hadn't seen him in a while. I just moved back from out of town, and what he's working on is like one of the most amazing things. Like most amazing things I've ever heard. I was so excited. I was basically finishing his sentences.
Oh wow! You're that excited.
I was that excited, and I like he painted such a good picture that I could see where all this stuff was going, and like the next 5 things it was going to compete with.
Amazing.
He hasn't launched this thing. It'd probably be a while before there's any way to materially work together, but there are just people like this who I want to surround myself with.
Yeah, and inspire you.
And so the biggest challenge I have these days is buffering any time for myself to just unwind. Like, I finally rented Ready Player One. And,
I enjoyed it.
I was really impressed.
Yeah.
And
it was fun.
So it's just Spielberg being Spielberg.
Yep.
And so just allowing myself to go and like kick back a little bit. And,
amazing. Well, you need that. You need to recharge too. In a different way.
Yeah. But the like audiobooks help with this. I'm listening to Bram Stoker's Dracula right now on Audible.
Yeah. I'll add that to my list.
in it, and Tim Curry, and it's a great mix. I finally just listened to The Handmaid's Tale too.
Okay.
Only because there's been so many cultural references to it, not just because of Hulu, but because of the political situation.
Yeah.
And people are dressed up as these handmaids protesting and stuff. I'm like, that's okay. What's the deal? So just trying to understand culture. Not
to make this a big commercial for serial marketer Slack, but one of the most popular channels on there too, the ones I love and enjoy going to, is actually the Book List.
The book club is the book club is this driving force of it. And,
I love it.
And that was something that for me, it was hands down for other people that would not have been a default channel, right?
Yeah.
And like this was actually one of the initial ideas.
Oh, interesting.
And I think there are going to be ways to formalize, like, do we have a periodic discussion group around, like, make it a book club?
I thought you were going to be like Oprah.
Be Oprah, yeah.
I can see that.
I'm not going to do my Oprah voice.
No. All right, so I always give everyone the opportunity to plug any projects that they're working on. Specifically now, hopefully you could share how people could join the Slack community and be part of it and grow from it. But really, anything else that you're working on, your blog, how can they sign up for the newsletter, all that kind of good stuff?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. So serialmarketer.net is the blog. The plural is serialmarketers.net is where you can get access to the community.
All right.
And then through there, you can also see the newsletter. I have a URL, bit.ly/serially sign up.
All right.
And probably shorten that a little bit further, but I'll at least get you to the newsletter page and just I mean, anyone who's listening to this, I really welcome hearing what your audience is working on and just having more people to learn from and like further support the community, and it's just kind of crazy that this is a thing that I get to just do and be part of, and even be a fly on the wall,
Well, thank you. You've definitely always been and will continue to be an inspiration to me and hopefully to all the listeners. So, Berkey, thank you so much for doing this.
Likewise, and you've inspired me many times over, so thanks for having me, guys. part of your own pilot.
I appreciate that. Thank you.